All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here today. Again, good morning, everyone. I hope wherever you are, you're having a great day. Welcome to the latest edition of our Ask the Experts virtual series. My name is Jake House. I'm a director here at First Service Residential and really excited to be moderating today's webinar. Today, we'll be tackling a very important topic, board succession planning. While it's important to have a successful and effective board in the present, boards need to concurrently lay the groundwork for the future. How do you do that? That's what we're going to be covering today. How to be great in the future by planning that groundwork, and that takes some effort on your parts as board directors. So a few housekeeping issues before we begin. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them through the Q&A option on your control panel. No need to take notes. We'll be recording this session and we'll send it to all of the attendees. Feel free to share it with other board directors or prospective board members. In addition, we'll be sharing our new board member assessment poll in the chat here in the next few minutes. Feel free to bookmark that for future reference. We've had some great feedback in the past from new and old board members that this has been very helpful to them while going through the evaluation process for board member candidates. So feel free to bookmark that new board member assessment poll. All right, we've got a great program for you today. So let's dive right in. Joining me are two presenters and my colleagues. We have Catherine Efron, Vice President, and also Allison Thiel, Vice President with First Service. Catherine, could you say hello and introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Jake. Pleased to be here with all of you today and to share some of what we do at First Service Residential and to kind of help those of you who are joining us today with navigating committees, board members, planning, and of course, the theme of the day is succession planning. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Allison?
Hi, Jake and Catherine. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. This is a topic that I know that we all discuss in our work lives quite often. It's a regular discussion, but not something that's thought of regularly in community associations and with boards. So I'm really, really excited to be a part of this panel and to dive in because this is something that's very healthy and very needed in all associations.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison and Catherine, for being here. We look forward to you adding your years of expertise and knowledge from the field and really giving our audience a real life perspective for what to look for and what good looks like. So thank you. Successful community associations know the importance of planning for the future while operating in the present. While it's impossible to choose which residents will run for future board positions, it is possible to establish a succession plan which clearly identifies and cultivates potential board leaders. So Kat and Allison are here to answer your questions and share best practices for cultivating and recruiting great and capable, engaged homeowners now so that you can have smooth operations for your community in the future. So all of the questions here today came from board members, right? And so they are highly relevant and we selected the most relevant ones. So we'll start with Allison, but our first board member asked, why is a board succession plan necessary? I think that's a good question to kind of lay the groundwork here.
That is, yes. And thank you, Jake. It's the perfect question to get us started in this topic. And it is a very, very important topic. In short, the most important thing is continuity. It's continuity and information for the transition, because you'll have transition year after year. And you have to think about a community association really is not that much different than a business. This is the business of your community. And if you want your business to be successful, then you need that continuity. And think about it, many board terms are only for 1 year. We do have some communities that might have success, 2 years, but for the most part, it's very difficult to guarantee continuity when you have projects that often span several years or initiatives that often span several years. And in order to keep the continuity with the projects, with the initiatives, to keep your property values, to keep the community business healthy, having that communication and that continuity from one board to the other is imperative. Catherine, wouldn't you think so?
Absolutely. Allison, good point on the continuity. You know, our board members are tasked with an extraordinary responsibility. Whether they're an officer or a director, they are board members of a corporation. And with that comes all sorts of skill sets that people bring to the table. But in order to keep a succession plan working, we have to respect the boundaries of the people who volunteered to be a part of that board, even though they were duly elected by the membership. You know, what we don't want to see are people burning out and not wanting to volunteer anymore because, you know, they're not getting paid for their time. They're doing it out of the goodness of the association, but also to protect their asset, their home. And, you know, when you are overseeing a corporation, that comes with a lot of exposure, liability that must be taken very, very seriously. And so I think, you know, as owners, owners can really support the board by making sure that they respect their boundaries as well. Allow them to go to the pool and have a nice Saturday afternoon without being, you know, approached by 200 people asking when the elevator is going to be fixed. So there's a time and place for everything. And I think it's a back and forth. It's really a give and take between the residents and the board members that makes it successful.
Yeah, totally agree. And definitely with the business aspect, you know, if you look at budgets of communities, you're talking $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, depending on the size. So truly is a business, a corporation with a budget. And with any business, you're planning for your next future leaders. So, all right. So next question is really about creating opportunities. How can we create opportunities to identify and develop future board members? And how early do we start? Catherine, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, Jake. One of the primary ways this happens is through, again, volunteering, committees. People may come to, the owners of an association may come to a board meeting and have lots and lots of questions, or they're very outspoken, or they're very interested in one thing or another, whether it be an agenda item or off the agenda. But I think when we, as a management company, and we sit next to our board at a board meeting and we have that interaction with the residents, the board can really zone in on somebody whom they should not perhaps consider them outspoken, but give them a job, right? Bring them into the fold, have them join a committee, have them volunteer. And sometimes that person will end up being the board member's greatest ally. That's where having a good management partner can really benefit a board of directors. At First Service Residential, we assist our committees and our boards at creating and writing charters for the committees, mission statements. We help on board, not only board members, but also committee members. And that might be your future board member sitting on that committee, chairing that committee. And so we help them become familiar with the rules that govern the association and everything that goes into it. But they're starting at a stage where they can really become familiar with the inner workings of the corporation.
Excellent.
And you know, Kat, I want to pick up on a couple of your points there and drive those home, is that you talked a lot about engagement and communication. And really, you know, we've all heard the saying, it takes a village. And in any community association, whether you're a tall building or a sprawling HOA, communication is the key to success. And that really is what succession planning is about. It's about the communication, the passing of information for the success in the future. We here at First Service Residential have a number of tools to help property managers and boards stay connected to and communicate to their residents. In today's digital world, the platform is way more than just simply sending a letter or an email, right? I mean, we have platforms now where we can send text messages, we can send recorded phone calls, right? We can do things internationally. It doesn't matter where the resident is on the globe. We can reach out, we can touch them, we can communicate them. And these are all tools we have available to our homeowners. And in the basis of that question of how early should we start and what should we key in on, Catherine, you hit the nail on the head. Look for engagement. Look for those people that are concerned, that are interested, right? Because the fiduciary duty of a board member is to maintain and improve the property values. So you want those people that are engaged. And we definitely have the tools to help. I have one tool in particular that I use quite often on a lot of my communities, is our marketing department and our managers can partner together with the board and create surveys. This has been one of the most successful platforms that we've used in the company, because the survey goes out to the entire community and boards can really get a sense on what is the most important things going on, the projects, the initiatives to the entire community. And it helps the boards and managers get that broader picture focus.
You're right,
That's
Allison.
excellent.
Let the technology work for you. And these days, you know, everybody has a phone with them. So whether we're communicating on behalf of the board via email, SMS text, or a resident alert, that's a phone blast, there's no excuse for lack of communication.
Exactly.
Right. So the more you're communicating, the more you're engaging with people on multiple different platforms, the more they're going to know about the community and gives those potential board members opportunities to get involved. I think one of the other interesting pieces is just with everything that's happened over the last 2 years and all of the, like we're on Zoom now, right? And so many more board meetings are taking place over Zoom, where it used to be you kind of had to be on site all the time to attend the board member. But I would imagine maybe there are some board members getting involved that don't necessarily live on that property 24/7, 365, or a part of a committee, because they're able to interact with the community in a different way, i.e., you know, over Zoom, and not have to attend every meeting. So next question. So a board member asked, what are the traits and skill sets we're looking for with different board members and potential board members? So I would imagine, again, you have a 5, 7, or a 10-member board. You want different folks on that board. So what traits, what skill sets really make up a great board, and how can you identify those in potential board members?
So I'll start with that, Jake. And really, again, I take it back to running a business. You know, if any business that you're running, you're always wanting to look for somebody that has the appropriate skill sets for the job that you need. So in your community, you know the projects that you have, you know the landscape of your community. Are you on an ocean? Do you have lakes? Do you have a lot of landscaping? You know, that kind of thing. So you want people that have industry experience that's going to help support all of the critical decisions that you as a board are going to make. If you have a lot of landscaping, you know, having someone who lives in your community that knows a lot about plants and plant disease, you know, someone who likes to farm and garden, that kind of thing, while it seems so simple, is really going to be hugely advantageous when you're thinking about re-landscaping and choosing plants. You need that person who has that specialty, right? So getting to know the people in your community, again, like we had mentioned before, having events in the community, talking to people, right? Getting to know them, who has those subject matter experts and those things that are going on in your community. And then beyond those skill sets, you want to look at the core of a person. And really what you're looking for is someone who's a good leader, someone who's a good communicator, someone who's good at sort of bridging across the aisle when there's different opinions, because that's going to happen in a community. Very rarely does everyone agree 100% on any concept. What you want to do is try and get everyone to agree on what would be the best for everyone. So having those people that have good people leadership skills and a strong code of ethics, I would say, would be the underlying. Catherine, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. The 3 words that come to mind are morals, ethics, and diplomacy. Whether it's the board president, treasurer, secretary, or director, they're all responsible for the funds of the association, all of the money that sits in the bank accounts. that's being managed on behalf of all of the owners. So that's a huge responsibility. You must have people who are very ethical. Some boards even take a pledge of civility. So to your point, Allison, diplomacy, arbitration, all of these wonderful traits that board members bring with them to the dais that they sit at a board meeting. When things start to get heated, if there is a particular item on the agenda that's causing some kind of conflict in the community, it's very, very helpful to have board members with these skill sets and with these personality traits that can navigate through all of that and bring everybody together, not cause a further divide. You also mentioned, Allison, that bringing your own expertise to the board is helpful, such as landscaping. Oh, and I agree wholeheartedly with you on that. You know, we have some board members who are attorneys or CPAs. Perhaps they're professional engineers. We would just give you a word of caution that in those instances, when you are bringing that type of expertise at the table, which is very valuable, you would not want to act as counsel, the CPA or the engineer on behalf of your own association. While all of that knowledge is bountiful and helpful, it would pose somewhat of a conflict. You'll want to use an independent engineer, an independent attorney who might specialize in association law, and an independent CPA. You would not want to perform those tasks on your own. And also, lastly, don't come with your own personal agenda. You're there for everybody collectively, and always remember to be fair.
You mentioned a pledge of civility. I think that's a timely topic considering just everything that's going on in the world. So could you give us some practical advice on how that's been deployed in the associations that you oversee?
Yes, I mean, there's a organization that's nationwide, CAI, they have available to anybody, and it's called the Pledge of Civility. And you know, at First Service, we also have a version of the same thing, and boards will, when they're inducted into the board, whether they're appointed or elected, and they go through the onboarding process, one of the things they will do is read through these guidelines where they are pledging to be respectful to one another and to the membership. And they're pledging to be honest and to govern with ethics and morality at all times. Sometimes just having that ratified into the minutes of a meeting is so impactful. It's such a great start for a board, for a group collectively to get together and say, this is who we are, this is what we believe in, and this is how we are going to operate as board members. And we hope that everybody who attends our open board meetings will conduct themselves in the same manner. And I've just seen that boards who start off like that are usually very successful.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it ties so well into our topic of board succession, because the more civil and moral a board is and how they operate on a day-to-day basis in the meetings and how they conduct business is going to directly impact whether folks want to be involved or not, right? So a more civil board that acts in a more business manner, keeping personal agendas out, is probably going to attract more people to want to be involved. And of course, you know, the inverse, you know, would be true as well. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another related question. So here's the question. We have a number of engaged homeowners in our community. What can we do to encourage them to run for the board?
Jake, I'll start with that. And I'm going to say it very, very simply. Ask them, right? That's the most important thing, because think about it. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with residents and communities. You know, they're so excited to be in the community and move in and take advantage of the amenities and that kind of thing. They never sort of connect in their mind that home ownership can be synonymous with leadership, right? You can be a homeowner and a leader, right? You're just focused on how am I going to decorate? What color am I going to paint? Am I buying the kitchen cabinets? You know, your mind goes off in all these other directions. But leadership in a community isn't really one that your realtor talks to you about, that you even discuss at the time in which you're looking at a property and thinking about buying it, right? So it's making that connection for the homeowners. And that responsibility really falls squarely on the shoulders of management and the current board, through what we're talking about, through communication and through education. And just that very simple communication, education, you see someone with some interest and you ask them. That is what opens the door for what we're talking about here today, which is succession planning, right? Because so often residents move into a community and it just doesn't even dawn on them, right? That they could be the leader and they really could create amazing change in this place that they love and they call home. Like we've talked about, this is one of the largest investments that all of us make, or the majority of us make in our entire lifetime, is our home, right? And how important that is to be able to be a leader of what is going to be the value of your community and your home is really probably one of the highlights that all of us should put on our resume, right?
And Allison, if I could just dig into that a little bit more, I think it's such an important point, just asking folks. But you know, there's that moment that you become a homeowner and you move into an HOA or a condominium, and how the association welcomes you as a new homeowner, I think is important. Is there anything, that's a moment of, right? I mean, you're a brand new homeowner, you might have a package or an orientation program. Is that a great time to educate them on it's not just homeownership, it's leadership? And what are some things that you've seen that work well for board orientation?
It's ideal. And I know Catherine is in our high-rise division and I'm in our condo HOA division, so houses, but in either, you will see often that management and board partner together for those orientations, right? For the new residents. And it's so true, Jake, that is the moment to get them informed, engaged, and sort of signed up, right? For what you're looking from them as residents in your community. Catherine, I'm sure you have some examples from your world, don't you?
Yes. So, these days, associations have the technology. They have their own website. And For Service Residential hosts a website for each and every one of our associations. And we actually went through the exercise at a particular community that I felt worked really well. There was a social committee at this particular association. And, it can be an HOA, it can be homes, single family homes, a high-rise condominium, mid-rise, townhomes, it doesn't matter. If you have a social committee, a welcoming committee, and, they say, okay, well, we have some new owners who moved in down the street, or if it's a brand new development, well, then that even creates a greater opportunity to bring all of the new people together at once. But let's say we have a new owner down the street, they reach out, welcome to the community. We would love to take you for a tour of our board meeting room. We even posted, it's kind of like an FAQ, frequently asked questions. And we would provide them with a little booklet. It's also posted on the website. So we try to use our technology. And, it takes the new owner from here are when we have our board meetings, what happens at a board meeting. This may be their first time owning in a community situation, association, and a little bit about what does my board do for me? What are they responsible for? And what am I responsible for as a member of this association? Because it goes both ways. There's a mutual trust, there's a mutual respect. And again, I think the foundation of getting to know somebody, and like you said, Jake, welcoming them to the community is the perfect time to say, hey, we are your committee. Come join us at the next board meeting. It's next Wednesday night. We have coffee and pastries. Let's all get together. And, if you really set the tone for a pleasant experience, board meetings need not be adversarial.
Excellent. Yeah, great points there. So a board member asked, homeowners have expressed an interest in running for the board in the future. Is there anything we can share with them to help get them prepared? We've kind of touched on this, but maybe there's some other pieces. And just what documents, what resources, and actually, let me expound upon it. I do think, our world is community associations. That's what we do every day. I think that there is a gap between people who've never lived in a common interest community and then they move into one, right? Or maybe they're in a non-deed restricted community and they move into one. So I do think that sometimes, we're educating folks on what it means to live in a community and what it takes to run a community, i.e. a board, and to constantly have, board members that need to run and be engaged. So yeah, what do we have out there, real life examples that we can share with homeowners who want to be on the board to get them prepared for that opportunity?
I think, Jake, in essence, it might start with the night of the election or the day of the election,
right?
The annual meeting for the association. And, the ballots are cast, the names are read, here is your new board. What's next? So what we do as the management partner for our boards of directors and our associations is that, we will sit down and talk to them after they have already decided amongst themselves who's going to be president, the officers, etc. There is your audience. This is your one opportunity to get off to a fresh start every year, or as Allison mentioned, if they have staggered terms, some people run every 2 years. However, we talk to them about, this is your board. Here's your board orientation. This is in front of them. This is your governing documents. And it can be done via Zoom. It can be done a hybrid in Zoom and in person, or any virtual platform that you choose to use. But we talk about each role. We talk about the financials. And we talk about the infrastructure of the building or the land itself. What do you all own collectively in this common interest that you have purchased in? You all own this collectively. The insurance covers this. You're responsible for this. So we start getting into everything from property appraisals to the roles of each and every officer, talking about committees and what each committee does. Some associations have 10 committees: ballet, landscaping, social committee, special projects committee. It's quite diverse. And then I think the best and the most important advice is, again, use your communication tools, use the technology, because after that night and everybody goes home, then what? So then we want to make sure that we keep the flow going, the continuity. When's the next board meeting? We're communicating that electronically to you. What's on the agenda? Here's what we're going to talk about. If it's a landscaping project, let's let everybody know what are the 10 different plants and flowers we're considering, the board's considering, or the landscape committee is considering planting for the summertime. And I think when everybody is brought into the conversation ahead of time, again, it makes for a much more peaceful and smooth board meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, we've talked about communication, and how, and also civility, communication, civility, and how that can, just run a more successful board and attract greater talent. It almost sounds like transparency is critical too, because when folks know what's going on and they can access documents on a portal, on an app, and they can see what's going on in real time, then you're going to have more folks chiming in or wanting to be engaged because they do know what's going on. You're communicating, but also it's transparent. And like we said in the past, if it's not transparent and they don't know what's going on, there's no communication. Why would you want to be involved with something like that, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
show your appreciation. Whether you're in the audience as a resident attending the board meeting, thank your board members. They're volunteers and they're protecting your asset as well as their own. when we're in the middle of a board meeting, we'll often say, thank you, board, for all of your work on this special project. We're entering concrete restoration or balcony restoration, an infrastructure project, which could cost millions and millions of dollars. And all of this time they're volunteering to the association. So it's important for both sides to appreciate each other. And again, set a good example. Board members should thank each other for their hard work.
Yeah, another key aspect here that is what both of you have touched on and in the communication and education is for potential boards, new boards, residents, all to understand the responsibility of everyone's role. So you touched on that, Catherine, as far as the board members' roles and what their responsibilities are. But beyond the board, there's management and residents. And all of us in that group, in that paradigm, are all governed by two things. We're governed by the association documents and by Florida statute. And so we as a management company always advise our boards, and it is Florida statute, that board members need to read their association documents. They need to get certified so that they understand Florida law in regards to this volunteer role that they're taking on. We as management support them in that. We are the subject matter expert in those things and helping to support them. And they have two other very essential subject matter experts to support them, which is the CPA, right, which is an independent auditor, and the association attorney. So when you have management, you have your association attorney, you have your CPA, you have board members and residents who have read the documents and understand Florida statute. You're talking about a community that is set up for success. But all of that doesn't happen overnight. So we have to work in partnership with management and the board and the other subject matter experts in educating the board and educating the community, because just stepping onto the board and deciding that you want to suddenly volunteer your time and help make decisions, it's not that easy. There's a lot of outside influencers, right, that regulate us and regulate them, and that we're here to advise them.
So true. So true. And that's, again, back to the point of the board member's question was really, people want to be on the board. What does it mean? And how are we going to communicate the different stakeholders and what it means to be on a board? Because that's going to ultimately lead to a better board succession.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have a last question. Did you want to add anything to that, Catherine? I don't want to.
No.
We good on that?
Thank you. We can go on. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So inverse question, what risk, and I'm sure you guys in the field with managers, with boards, you've seen it all. So what risk, I'm sure there's communities that do it great, right? They have a board succession plan, everything runs smoothly, maybe some that don't. What risk do we potentially face without a good board succession plan in place? And what have you seen out there with boards that just don't have this going?
Jake, I'll jump in quick and I'll say, here at First Service Residential, one of our core values as a company that we have in our daily operating in our business and in helping boards is to help them improve the value of their community, because their fiduciary duty from Florida statute is to maintain and improve the value of the community, right? That is the objective of a board, and we are impartial. Management is impartial. So whether it's the previous board or a future board, in between board changes, our goal is to support the board in the decisions that they need to make. And in the end, that is to help improve the value of the community. The risks that they face, right, and not having a succession plan is what is going to get in the way and interrupt the progress of improvement. And Catherine and I have both been in many situations when a succession plan isn't in place, a former board, a new board takes over, there's not good communication, there's not good flow of information, regardless of how hard everyone tries. There are things that will come to a screeching halt. And in the end, what we see is that inevitably it's a loss of time and money. So like we had talked about, board members many times are only in role for 1 year. 12 months is not a very long period of time. When you think about it, it could take 2 or 3 months for everyone to get orientated and understand what is going on, especially if you only have a board meeting once a month, right? So having a succession plan in place so that when the new board is elected, they don't spend a couple months getting orientated with what's going on, slowing down the progress of critical projects and initiatives in the community, because in the end, that's going to result in lost time and lost money, which no community wants to do that, invest in losing time and money. And Catherine, I'm sure that you have seen that too, right? Without
Yes.
the proper succession planning, I mean, we've seen examples of associations that might have huge projects with special assessments in place. A new board will come in and they don't understand it, and they bring it all to a screeching halt. And we know that, vendors, contractors can't just simply sit and wait, because a board needs time, right, to get caught up. So you can potentially lose contractors or lose payments from maintenance and special assessment being paid just because the residents don't understand. I mean, there is a huge financial risk by not having a good succession plan, because you're investing by spending that time and that in energy in the communication, you're investing in the success of your business, which is the success of your community and the value of your property.
Yes, absolutely, Allison. Projects take place every day in any type of association. And when board members transition, and we've been brought into quite a few situations to an association where maybe there was some dysfunctionality, and we're brought in to fix that, which we can absolutely help with. But when you've got one board ending and a new board beginning, and perhaps, let's say, the entire 7-member board turned over, and there were no successive terms, there were no staggered terms, so there's no junior and senior people on the board to pass on that information. That's more important than ever to have a management partner like First Service, because we are the continuity. And like you said, Allison, we are impartial. We represent the association at large and its members and what's in their best interest. So we will transition all of the information over. But a project, if you experience delays because the new board is learning what the old board didn't teach them, or perhaps the new board members never attended a board meeting, so they never had the knowledge of what projects were already ongoing, you might be using your reserves. Perhaps you funded your reserves in your association for many, many years, and that's how you're paying for your project. Perhaps there was a special assessment, and that's how you're funding your project. But either way, like you said, if there's a gap at any point in time, or contractors are changed, or there are change orders, or permits are pulled and then they're rescinded, because different entities, different fractions in the community perhaps had a different vision, it's much more beneficial to have a succession plan, like all of the things we've been talking about today, but to have your money, your finances, the infrastructure, and all of the operations that goes into the old board to the new board, have the board orientation, and move on. And what we do as your management partner is ensure that there is that continuity of information. We sit down with you, review all of the financials, all of your cash balances in your accounts, where your project timeline is, where your benchmarking is for the projects, introduce you to your contractors, so that there can be a smooth transition and continuity.
Excellent. We have some questions coming in that we want to get to before we wrap up. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Here's one here. How do you suggest handling disagreements between directors? Not that that ever happens, right? Any thoughts on that, Allison or Cap?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're talking about human beings, and human beings have varying opinions, right? And in any community, everyone's going to have a thought and an idea and an opinion. And as a community, the importance of the board is to try and bridge that gap in differing opinions and making a decision that's best for the community. And this is something we really didn't discuss yet, in that, you know, the board, you have management, you have your subject matter experts, your attorney, your CPA, your contractors, that kind of thing. And in the end, everyone, residents, subject matter expert, management, all of us are giving advice and opinion to the board. Ultimately, every single decision in a community rests on the board. You know, really the buck stops with them, right? So they have a huge support system. And in that support system, when we had talked about earlier, like what are the qualities that you look for in a board member? You need someone who's a good listener, right? So when you get to that unfortunate moment when there are disagreements in a board, there's an analogy that I use with all of my board members that I'll present here, is that quite often the relationship that you see between board members with each other, between board and management, between board and resident and management, all of us, it really is like an arranged marriage, so much so, because the decisions that we're making, just like you make in your own household at home about spending big lumps of sums of money and doing projects in the house, that kind of thing, that's what you're doing as a board in your community. And those kinds of things can cause stress and strife and disagreement. So it's inevitable that those moments are going to happen. So when you're looking for board members and you're doing the succession planning, you want to key in on those kinds of people that have the qualities where they can walk into those tense situations with varying opinions, and that they're able to bring calm. All of us have met people that are really, really good at that and keen at having that quality of a personality. And that's what is going to make the difference. Is you don't want someone who's going to stir the pot and make it worse. You want the person who's going to try and bring everyone together, because it's inevitable that's going to happen. And when you go from one board to another, again, back to my marriage analogy, in some way it's like a separation or a divorce, right? You know, residents get used to and accustomed to a particular board, and now they have to get used to and accustomed to a new board and the new thought process in that. And so the ask always is, and our job as management, and we at First Service Residential practice this all the time, is to try and help all of those board members, present, former, future, right, have open, transparent communication. Because what's the basis of any healthy relationship? It's good communication.
So true.
So true. I had a board years ago, and you know, everything was fine. Board meetings would take place, and the board was always shocked how few people attended the board meetings. You know, community of 200 units or 200 homes, you were lucky if you got 5 people to come to the board meeting, and the board felt, wow, are we doing something wrong? I said, well, actually, quite the contrary. What we see is that's probably a testament of trust. You know, you want a big crowd, pass a special assessment, then all of a sudden everybody shows up. But also what happens during that time is often board members start feeling the stress amongst themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is great until it's not great. And the stress is on the board, and people are showing up and they're asking, why are we being charged for this? And I don't really think this should be done before that. And before you know it, you may have fellow board members in a disagreement. And that's why I say respect, patience, and diplomacy. And Allison, I know, Jake, we've all sat in board meetings where we are the arbitrator. We are the mediating factor. And I think that's the greatest gift sometimes that we can give to a board and a community, is say, hey, let's all just take a moment, have a cup of coffee, and discuss the pros and cons. Everybody's opinion should be respected and heard. So you're always coming back to the fundamentals, right? The civility, the decorum. And before you know it, you know, board members can talk through these things. And it's good when they do it at an open meeting, because it shows the owners that the board is solidified. What you don't ever want to do as a board is start trying to have these off-screen conversations,
right,
or table something, and then before they know it, there's a quorum of the board having an illegal board meeting. which is basically, the majority of the board gathering to discuss and make decisions, because they don't want to necessarily do this in front of the residents and have any kind of friction. It's much more beneficial and legal to do it the proper way. If board members also prepare well for meetings and communicate on all the agenda items well ahead of time, they're well prepared. They get a board packet before a meeting and they read the items in there and what they're about to vote on the night of the board meeting and educate themselves. It makes it easier for them to talk to their neighbors, but also to communicate with each other and be much more unified in a board meeting setting.
And Catherine, I think you might agree with this, that quite often misunderstandings come from, misunderstandings between board members come from a misunderstanding of how to make the decision and who's responsible, right? And should we or shouldn't we, can we or can't we? And this brings me back to that discussion of the subject matter experts, right? When you're not really sure whose decision it is, or if you can even make that decision, that's why you have an association attorney. If you're not really sure if you should use your reserves or you should use your operating account or if you should pass a special assessment, this is why you have a CPA and an attorney, both. I mean, boards have the wealth of subject matter experts that are there, including property management companies like us, to support them. So when it comes to Florida statute, we have all seen, especially in the past year with what happened at Champlain Tower, that laws are changing in Tallahassee on a regular basis, right? In session, that lots of changes have been coming out. We as a company do seminars just like this on a regular basis that, you log into the webpage of First Service Residential and they're all there to update board members and residents on changing laws and statutes and how that affects all associations. So again, the most important thing is education, communication, lean into your subject matter experts, and we are always here to help support in the dynamic of all of that. I think in many ways we find ourselves, when I use that analogy of an arranged marriage, quite often we find ourselves in that seat of being the marriage counselor, right, Catherine?
Absolutely. And when a board functions well, there is a much happier, cohesive community at large, and you can feel that culture. But when a board does not function well, or there are delayed projects, it is lots of time and money wasted, but an inconvenience to the residents and to their lifestyle.
And to their lifestyle, most definitely.
To their lifestyle.
Yeah, because that's the most important thing. This is their home. And when you come home, everyone, when they come home, the last thing you want to do is pull into the driveway or walk into your elevator and enter into an environment that's stressful, right? It should be cohesive and cooperative. It should be a positive place where you're putting your largest investment.
Absolutely.
So true. Just kind of going through the questions here. This is a real quick one that I can just answer for everybody. And Allison, you just touched on it, but do you have a seminar to help us understand Florida law for associations? Absolutely. fsresidential.com // whichever slash it is, resource library. But if you just go to our website, resource library, all of the seminars that we do are on there. The most up-to-date information regarding Florida law is on there. Real quick, we kind of touched on this, but I just want to make sure for our attendee, how do you determine if a prospective board member will fit the dynamics of the current board and the condo manager?
Well, first of all, I think people need to get to know each other, right? Again, communicate, have a dialogue, speak to each other with personal agendas and personal self-interest aside. That's the number one success story, is when board members are able to do that in and of itself. How can we guarantee people are going to get along? We can't do that, but we can provide the forum for the communication and the diplomacy to take place in an open board meeting, right? Where they can really share their ideas and bring in the association members too, to have opinions and allow them to speak at meetings.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of associations prior to an election do a meet the candidate night, right? It gives everyone a chance to sort of get to know that person who's perhaps running or wants to run, and dig down into what their interests are and what their motivation is, that kind of thing. But again, it comes back to that sense of community. And we had talked on it earlier today about committees, or even special events. Just this past weekend, we had a lot of holidays, and a ton of our communities, I've seen so many pictures that had special events and parades, and everybody was out having a great time and enjoying the beautiful weather. And what better way to get to know and find those future board members than in moments like that, in those casual conversation moments? Really is the perfect opportunity.
Yes,
So true.
better to bring people together when times are happier. I love that, Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody writes, we kind of touched on this, but how soon, and maybe I can answer this because I think this is a quick one. How soon should you start recruiting people for the next board? Today.
Today.
Right. So it's in all of these interactions.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
exactly what Kat said. The time is now, when times are good or maybe not good. But yeah, I think it's just a constant process to recruit people.
And be open to ideas, because that next board member who may want to run or be on a committee could very well be sitting in front of you at your board meeting. So, be open to everybody's opinions and let everybody have an opinion, be respectful.
Or standing next to you in the elevator. I mean, really,
Right.
you never know. And like I said,
Right.
so many people just don't think about it. They move in and they don't think, oh, I could be on the board, right?
Yeah.
And then we talked so much today about education and communication. And when you say, when should you start sourcing for a board member? When should you start educating and communicating? As soon as possible, immediately, and as often as possible. Newsletters, a monthly letter from the president explaining what's going on and why decisions are made for the reason that they are, and adding in there the framework of what is required based on your association documents in Florida law, because quite often homeowners don't understand that dynamic. And when you become a board member, and Kat and I, you see this all the time, it's when you become a board member that you really start to understand how decisions have to be made based on the parameters set by the documents in Florida statute. And residents, because they don't need to make decisions in that realm, don't understand. But regular communication out to the community of why a decision was made and bringing that in is what you're doing, is you're educating those future board members, right?
That's so
Just from
true,
a
Allison.
simple communication.
Absolutely. And sometimes the board will need to appoint someone, maybe midterm.
Yeah.
Person sells their unit, sells their home. The governing documents may not allow for that person to serve on the board unless they are an owner. And the board will be faced with a choice that we have to replace this person. We're only 4 months into our term. We want to have an odd number. That's why you see most boards are odd numbers. There's a tiebreaker, 3, 5, 7, 9. There's always an odd number so they can hopefully break a tie if there's a vote on whatever particular agenda item. And some boards will hold interviews. So they will ask people, if you would like to be considered as an appointee to the board to fill this open seat, kindly remit something about yourself, a resume, saying why you would like to serve as a vice. And sometimes that's how they choose the next person on the board. So there's lots of different options. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
A quick clarification and then another, maybe, I think we have time for about one more question. So someone wrote in just talking about Florida laws. This is a regional webinar and we've had folks that are in different states. So anytime we've made reference to Florida law, it's really whichever state you're in, just making sure just about every state that we operate in has Georgia statutes, Tennessee statutes, Alabama, right? So that just follow the applicable state statutes, and we can provide you more information on that. Let's see. Does First Service have a template for monthly board communication to residents? Absolutely. We're happy to give that to you. If you need any examples, you can reach out to me directly.
Yes.
Let's see.
We have tools and toolboxes for board members as well. And of course, we prepare the agendas most of the time and then send it to the board for review with their feedback and their agenda items. But
absolutely. And we'll be happy to
we do
provide
the
you a
agenda.
template. Let's see. Will this information be sent to attendees? Yes, absolutely. Let's end on this one. Because this is like, real life stuff, and we've kind of touched on this, but this particular board member they're just having challenges finding owners who are even willing to serve on the board. So any kind of last minute suggestions for getting owners interested and willing to do the work? Like I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. They're literally trying to get people on their board. What should they do, or what questions should they be asking of themselves?
I would say hold an event. Have a fun little gathering, of course, safe and COVID compliant wherever you do live in the country, but have an event, something fun, something at the pool. It's a beautiful time of year, wherever you live. And, get everybody out, get everybody together, host a block party, maybe have a wine and cheese, or a full moon night, and everybody watches the beautiful full moon. And while you're there, you're talking and you're saying, look, we really need to fill 2 seats on the board. If we don't fill them, we can't fulfill our duties to all of you. So is there anybody here who might be interested in giving an hour a week of their time? Here's what it involves. So sometimes over a casual setting, people will be much more receptive, and then follow it up again with a communication, an email, an e-blast. Make it easy for them. Here, click on this link if you would like to submit your intention to be considered.
And we had talked a little bit about technology, using technology to the current board's advantage to make it more convenient for someone to join the board by hosting hybrid meetings, right? So that you don't necessarily, the new board member doesn't necessarily need to be physically present, right? So a lot of us are getting back to the in-person. Some of us are still doing Zoom, but a hybrid sort of gives that blended moment. And then for boards to be flexible to what potential new board members need in regards to timing, right? So timing of when a meeting happens, time of day, time of week, that kind of thing, because it all needs to be, when you have a new board, you almost need to revisit and reevaluate what had been, and does that work for the new group, right? Being open, being flexible to change, because we've all seen it in the past 2 years. The world has dramatically changed, and we need to change with the times. And then lastly, as far as trying to find those new board members, it really is the event, you're right, and creating those moments where you find engagement in residents where they perhaps haven't thought of the fact that their interest in the landscaping, their interest in what's going on in the pool or the elevator or the color of the lobby, just that question or conversation that they're having with you, that can lead to that person becoming a board member.
Absolutely.
Most assuredly.
Communication by paper and technology. You're right, Allison.
Excellent. Well, we're winding this down. I wish we had more time for questions, but that's all the time we have for today. So Kat and Allison, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And Allison, have fun on your vacation. Allison's going to Ireland. That's exciting. And to our attendees, thank you for joining us for Ask the Experts virtual event. Set up for success, board succession planning. At First Service Residential, we understand how critical good succession plan is for the future of your association. We hope you found this information helpful. We're always here to answer any questions you have. You can go to our website and submit a request, and we'll get back to you, fsresidential.com. Thank you all so much. Have a great day wherever you are. Enjoy the spring, and just have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week.
Indeed.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.